you grew up in America, especially between the 1950s and the 1980s, the basement was not just another room. It was a place full of mystery, memories, and family history. For kids, it was the ultimate hide-and-seek spot. For every mom, it was a food storage paradise. It was Dad's workshop, the bicycle parking garage, the Christmas treasure room, the family rec room, the laundry area, and, in a lot of the country, a storm shelter. Every basement had a don't touch that zone where the mechanical equipment lived. Furnaces, water heaters, electrical panels, plumbing lines, and sometimes the washer and dryer. And it was where forgotten family treasures sat buried for years under layers of dust. If you're not American, you've probably still seen it in a dozen movies. Someone creeps down the creaky wooden stairs into a dark basement. To you, that feels normal. It feels expected. But to most of the world, the idea of an entire extra floor underneath the house is genuinely strange. Here's the catch. A basement was never a sign of wealth. It's the result of climate, soil, history, and the way houses got built. The first reason is the frost line. The frost line is the depth at which the ground actually freezes in winter, and when soil freezes, it expands. If a house's foundation sits above that line, the freezing ground can push it upward, crack it, and slowly destroy the structure from below. That brutal process is called frost heave. To prevent it, building codes in cold regions require builders to place the foundation footings below the frost line. In northern Minnesota, that line can be around 4 feet deep. In parts of Maine, it's even deeper. Once a builder is already digging a hole that deep, going another 4 or 5 feet to create a full basement typically adds only about 30 to 40% to the foundation cost. You're already digging the hole. Literally, you might as well finish the room. Then there's the Midwest, where basements are part of the region's survival infrastructure. Tornado Alley stretches through Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Iowa. When a tornado is racing toward a house at speeds approaching 200 miles per hour, the safest place a person can be is below ground. In those places, a basement is a life-saving shelter. A lot of Midwestern families don't even use their basements primarily as living space. They use them as storm bunkers, the room where you grab the dog, gather the kids, and run when the sky turns green. That's a building motivation few other regions have. But there's another, quieter reason basements became so common in America: the mechanical room. The furnace, the water heater, the electrical panel, plumbing lines, often a water softener, and a sump pump. All of it tied into the house, all of it taking up real space. In many other countries, homes use compact wall-mounted boilers or tankless water heaters, so the whole mechanical system hides inside a closet. In America, that closet became a room, sometimes bigger than some countries' entire kitchens. So the basement didn't just hide the equipment. It absorbed everything else too. The holiday decorations, the old furniture, the canned food, the boxes full of memories, because once you've already built an extra floor, you might as well fill it. Quick gut check before we keep going. If you grew up with a basement, was yours a rec room, a storm shelter, or basically a landfill for holiday decorations? Drop it in the comments. I want to know which version you had. And underneath all of it, there's history. Early American settlers, especially in the Northeast, built root cellars to store potatoes, apples, preserved meats, and other food through the winter. Refrigeration didn't exist, so a cool, dark underground room was an essential part of the home. As houses grew larger and coal furnaces replaced fireplaces in the late 1800s, those root cellars evolved with them. The furnace needed space. The coal needed a bin. The chimney needed a practical connection. Gradually, the root cellar became a full basement. Once basements were a standard part of American home construction, each new generation simply expected them to be there. Construction traditions are stubborn. Even after the original reasons fade, the habit of building basements can carry on for decades. After World War II, suburban development gave many American families larger lots. In colder regions especially, builders had the room to add a basement underneath. On the other hand, most houses around the world are built directly on a concrete slab or a shallow foundation, because the ground in those regions doesn't freeze deeply. In warmer climates, there's simply no frost line to dig below, where the water table sits close to the surface. Basements flood easily and cost far more to build and waterproof. And where the terrain is rocky, digging through solid bedrock gets expensive fast. In earthquake zones, engineers usually choose foundations that flex with the ground instead. If there's no engineering reason to build a basement, the extra cost rarely makes sense. That's why the basement stayed a mostly American habit. Even within the United States, basements are far from universal. The Northeast and Midwest, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, New York, basements are everywhere. Cross into Florida, Louisiana, or much of Texas, and they almost disappear. Same country, wildly different foundations. And each region has its own reason. In Florida, it's water. The state sits on a limestone shelf with the water table just a few feet down. Dig a basement, and you're basically digging a pool. That's why the standard Florida home sits on a plain concrete slab instead. Right on the coast, where storm surge is the bigger threat, builders go a step further and raise the house on piles. Add hurricanes and sinkholes, and digging down just never made sense here. In Texas, it's the clay. The soil swells when wet and shrinks when dry, putting constant pressure on foundation walls. A basement would need serious engineering to survive that. And in California, it's earthquakes. When the ground moves sideways, a flexible slab or crawl space holds up better than a rigid basement. Remember how strange this all sounded to the rest of the world? Turns out it's starting to sound strange to America too. Here's the surprise. New American construction is quietly walking away from basements. Nationally, the swing has been huge. Slab foundations went from under half of new homes in 2000 to nearly 3/4 of them today. Even in places like Minneapolis, where basements are still the local habit, that national tide is starting to pull at the tradition. Builders are pouring more slab on grade homes in places like Colorado than ever before. Faster to build, cheaper, and none of the waterproofing headaches a basement brings. Modern furnaces and tankless water heaters fit in a closet now, so there's nothing left to hide underground. But the real twist is this. There's a technique borrowed from Scandinavia called a frost-protected shallow foundation. Wrap rigid foam insulation around the edge of the house, and the ground underneath never freezes. No frost line to dig below at all. The original engineering reason for basements, the exact one this video started with, is being designed out of the house, one subdivision at a time. You've been touching this system your whole life without realizing it. That haunted basement trope in every horror movie only works because most American viewers actually have one. The unfinished concrete room, the single hanging light bulb, that's a real architectural leftover from coal furnaces and root cellars. Head to the Midwest during tornado season and you'll notice something. People don't wait around once the sirens go off. On average, a tornado warning gives you about 13 minutes of notice. That's geography, built right into the house. Walk through a Florida retirement community and you won't find a single basement, because a limestone shelf and a water table a few feet down already made that decision decades before anyone moved in. And drive through a new subdivision going up outside Denver right now, and more of those houses won't have basements either, not because the winters got milder, But because the engineering finally caught up to a tradition nobody actually chose on purpose. So here's where you land. The American basement is not a cultural quirk. It is a frost line, a water table, a tornado, a furnace, a root cellar, and 150 years of habit, all stacked into one room. Most of the world skipped it because their soil, climate, and heating systems never made it worth the dig. You just watched a habit outlive its own reason for existing. The same thing happened to something a lot bigger than a basement, the American Mall. If you want the full story, go watch What Actually Killed the American Mall.